Good morning. I'm glad to be back and we are continuing about coaching. So the next question is, what is coaching? So coaches are experts that are helping people to change. So a leadership coach encourages emerging leaders to take responsibility for maximizing their own potential and help these leaders to develop action plans towards that. So coaches are more supportive in their relationships to actually free others to become their God-given destiny. A coach becomes a friend, a confidant that walks with you along the way. A coach sees emerging leaders as bearers of God's image. So a coach recognizes that he needs to push the leaders to think. Also, he needs to stretch themselves to take responsibility and to get done what they know they need to do. So for a coach, it's very important, the accountability, to challenge them to live out to God's truth and God's unique calling in their life. The central characteristic of coaching is believing in people. Nothing is more empowering than knowing that you've got a friend that walks with you, that encourages you, and even if you make mistakes, that is still there for you. That is what Jesus does for those who trust in Him. He loves them as they are, knows who He made them to be, and used their life experiences to bring them to that point. Coaches consciously imitate the way that Christ looks at His people and the way that God developed leaders. Coaching focuses on helping people discover and fulfill their God-given destiny. It's a method of leadership development that uses goals and action steps to strategically move an emerging leader towards the goal that God has set out for him or her. As a method, coaching depends on a close relationship between the coach and the client to move the client towards strategic goals and focuses entirely on the client. So coaches help people learn rather than teach. So if we compare it to mentoring, normally a mentor has got the knowledge, they mentor people and they tell people what to do. And that is where coaching is different. Coaching does not give information and does not tell the client what to do. A coach actually wants the person to get to the answer. And that is based on some research that was done, that adults learn different than children. Adults want to learn and discover on their own. If they discover the solution on their own, they will make it their own and permanently change. So there's a deeper learning that happens when you actually, as an adult, discover the solution for yourself. So the one most basic principle of coaching is that the client's own insight is much more powerful than the coach's advice. They need to discover it for themselves. And if we look at the parable that Jesus told about the Good Samaritan, He also did not give the solution to the people. Instead, He said, "Which of these three do you think proved to be a neighbor?" And He encouraged the hearers to actually think about it. Now, as adults, and especially leaders, we learn best from our experiences, addressing life's real challenges and developing and applying their own solutions and seeing results. Learn to take responsibility for your own personal growth and your own problems. You need a coach to guide you through that, and then the deep learning happens. So coaching encourages this kind of leadership growth, providing a safe context for experimenting and knowing that you can fail, because the coach will still be there supporting you, believing in you and encouraging you. And this is a very powerful motivator for people actually to step out and try new things. Coaching also provides a support for change. So a coach facilitates the change by providing accountability. So the client will decide what they need to change and what steps they will actually take to get to that goal. But then the coach needs to keep them accountable. So accountability is a very powerful tool. We all find that it's quite easy to procrastinate. We can make all these lists of goals that we've got and what we want to achieve. But if there's not someone that's actually keeping us accountable and asking us, did you do that? We end up procrastinating or finding reasons not to do it. So coaching not only provides accountability, but it also gives support and encourages the client as they move towards accomplishing the change that they set out as their goal. Coaching is also orientated towards the future. It does not try to fix the past. Instead, coaching focuses on the future. So it focuses on what you want to change. And this is where it actually differs from consulting. Consulting will look at the past and then you try and consult the problem that you've got from the past. Coaching is particularly valuable for leaders because it focuses on the future and your purpose to actually maximize your potential. Coaching also develops a relationship for the purpose of growth. Now, when the coach and the client meets, it's not just to meet and talk. There's actually an agenda, that there is communication that clearly sets the expectation, and then there's a report back on specific goals, and that's where the accountability comes in. So throughout this relationship, the coach makes it clear that he expects the client to accomplish whatever action steps they've decided on. This is a clear expectation, what makes coaching effective. So many times you've attempted to mentor someone, and I believe that you have become frustrated because the person does not want to change. You've given advice, you've told them what to do, but there's no change happening. And the reason is because the change is not coming from them. They're not getting to the solution and the action steps, and then you can keep them accountable for that. So coaching avoids this problem by squarely placing the responsibility for growth and change on the client. The desire and effort must come from the client. So coaching seldom advised or suggests. And this almost seems a bit counterintuitive, going against everything we think that we know about developing leaders. So easy to think, but we should tell them what to do. But having the motivation to change is more important than knowing what the change is that you need to make. And I'm going to repeat it. Having the motivation to change is more important than knowing what the change is that you need to make. And if we think in a biblical context, the Bible tells us clearly what we must do. We know what we must do. But people don't grow in their spiritual maturity because they don't have the motivation to change. The role of a coach is to motivate emerging leaders to change. If they are gifted as leaders, they have a growing clarity on what God has called them to do. God calls us all to change, to grow in grace, and He arranges our circumstances to bring the need for change to our attention. We know that we need to work on it. What we often lack is the energy and motivation to get started and then to follow through. This is where coaching comes in. So the last thing that is important is change depends more on motivation than on information. So when we understand that motivation is the most important factor in producing change, we will ask questions that encourage people to discover their own solutions. We do this because we know that people choose for themselves. People are more highly motivated to take those steps when they've chosen those steps. And it's far more effective than to encourage them to the change. The intent of coaching is not to give people the right answer, but to motivate them towards change. So after this session, I want you to look in your workbooks on page 9, and there's another 3 questions to work through. The first one is, what is significant about the way in which adults learn? Number 2, how does consistent accountability help people change? And number 3, why do coaches seldom give advice? Thank you.